Hi guys. So for the first part of the week this week, we are going to go over linear functions. So really quick, just in case anybody still had any questions about solving, most of the work I've gotten back has been pretty good. Um, but I just wanted to make sure we're still good on solving. So reminder, I recommend drawing a line down your equal sign just so you know, keep yourself organized. And then when you have parentheses, the first thing you're going to want to do is distribute. So that 6 is going to multiply by both things in the parentheses. So I'm going to bring down my -4. 6 times x is going to be 6x, and 6 times -6 is -36. Now, I will say that when I did see mistakes on the work, the biggest mistake I saw was people forgetting to simplify or combine like terms before they started solving. So make sure you're doing that. So I'm going to combine the -4 and the -36 because they're on the same side. So I'm not doing the opposite of anything. I'm just putting them together. So it's going to be 6x minus 40 equals -88. Also be careful of not losing your negative. I do it all the time. Some people were doing it on their work. I tried to put little comments in, but anyway, just something to be mindful of. So now it's as simple as it can be, so I'm going to solve. So I'm going to add 40 to cancel those out, but I got to do it on both sides to keep my equation balanced. And I'm going to bring down my 6x, and on this side I end up with -48. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 6, and I will get x equals -8. That'll be my answer. So, excuse me. Anyway, solving. Awesome. Super exciting, I'm sure. Really? I did 2 of them? Okay. So, one more. Sorry, I thought I was only going to put 1 on there. This one I think I did because it's got variables on both sides. So once again, I'm going to start by simplifying. -20 minus 3a. Multiply -4 times both, so -4a, +16, bring down my -5a. Oops. Then I want to combine like terms on the right side. So my left side's already as simple as it's going to get. Okay. So I'm going to combine these two guys. So I'll get -9a plus 16. So what I want to do is I want to get the variables on the same side as each other and the numbers on the same side of it as each other, but like opposite sides. So I'm going to move my variables. Well, let's just move them to the right just because. Okay, so I'm going to add 3a because reminder, like it does not matter which way you go. It really doesn't. And then I'll get -6a plus 16. So now that I've got all my a's together on the same side, I want to get rid of that 16. So I'm going to do the opposite or the inverse operation and subtract. So those will cancel out, and I will get -36 equals -6a. Now, this is the place where I most often see people like losing their negatives. If you've got a negative coefficient with a variable, like the -6a, you've got to divide by -6, not just 6. So be careful about that. And then a negative divided by a negative gives you a positive. Ta-da. Okay, so solving. Hooray. So this first half of the week, we're going to talk about slope-intercept form. So I'm sure you all have heard of it, hopefully, but remember it, I guess. This is slope-intercept form of a linear function. And the reason it is called such is because right there, you got your slope, and right there, you've got your y-intercept. Hence the term slope-intercept, because anyway. So that's what we're going to be working with right now. Okay. So just as a reminder, in case we don't remember what slope or the y-intercept are, slope is those two R words. It's rise over run. It's technically a rate of change. So, but the way we use it when we're graphing and stuff is rise over run. So like you start at a point and it tells you how many to go up and how many to go over, up or down, left or right, whatever, whichever way you're going. Your y-intercept is a lot of times thought of as your starting point, but that it's the first point we plot when graphing, but that can be misleading because the line's going to go forever in both directions. But really, it's where it touches the y-axis. Okay, so that's where the line is going to actually touch or cross over the y-axis. Now, the two main things that we're going to focus on, aside from obviously like graphs of lines, are going to be the intercepts. So we've already said that the y-intercept is where you touch the y-axis. So, it should be pretty obvious that the x-intercept is where it touches the x-axis. And if you're looking at a graph, you can literally just find the point where that happens, just like, boom, there it is. That's the y-axis. Oh, and if you forget which is which, the way I always tell people to remember is y to the sky, because the y-axis goes up and down, the x-axis is side to side. If you forget, just say. Anyway, but if you're coming from an equation, you actually have to do some algebra. So to find the y-intercept, you're going to plug in 0 for x. And if you're doing the x-axis, you're going to plug in 0 for y. Okay. So plug in. They'll give you both, because at that point, when you're plotting a point that is on the y-axis, the x value is 0, and same vice versa. And remember that all points are written x comma y, alphabetical order, if that helps. But anyway. Cool. So with this, from the equation, we're going to find the slope, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept. The slope and the y-intercept should be super easy because the equation gives it to you, because this is slope-intercept form. So remember, y equals mx plus b. So my slope, which is just m, is -1/4. It's always going to be the number that's touching x. These, even if, this is the proper way to write it, but let's say you had an equation where like the x came second or something, the slope is always touching x, just so you know. My y-intercept, now in these cases, if it's asking you for a y-intercept, technically that's a point. So you should write it as a point with like x, y. So it's going to be the point 0, -1. Then for your x-intercept, it's going to take a little bit more work. Not much, but a little. So with my x-intercept, I'm actually going to plug in 0 where y is, and everything else will stay the same. Okay? -1. And I actually have to solve, which is why we went over solving, because there are reasons why we have to solve things. So I'm going to draw my line down, and I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I'm going to get, oops, I forgot my negative. See, I'm telling you, man, people always lose their negatives, myself included. -1/4 x equals 1. Now, whenever you have a fraction, in order to get rid of a coefficient, you would divide, but dividing by a fraction confuses people. For those of you who are comfortable with this terminology, when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal, meaning you flip it over and multiply, and then they all cancel out. But when it's just like -1/4, that's basically what I'm doing, is I'm multiplying by -4 over 1 on both sides, which is just -4 in this case. So my slope, these cancel out because -1/4 times -4 is just 1. And -4 times 1 is -4. So lo and behold, I have found that my x-intercept is the point -4, comma 0. It does matter which order you put those in. So make sure you remember, points are always written x, y. If it's the x-intercept, the number that's not 0 is going to go where the x is, and vice versa. So anyway, moving on. Here's another one for you. So I want to find my slope, which is m, and it's the number touching x, so it's -2. I want to find my y-intercept, which is my b, which is the number by itself. And that will be, oops, see, look, I'm not even following my own directions. The point 0, 2. My x-intercept is going to take a little bit more doing. I got to plug in 0 for y and solve. So I'm going to add 2. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to subtract 2 because adding 2 would be ridiculous. Okay, because I want to do the opposite. Hello, come on, Thurman, get your life together. Okay. So bring down my -2x. 0 minus 2 is just -2, and then I divide. Oh, one thing I will say, if dividing by a fraction confuses you, one thing you can do is in GeoGebra, you can actually just type like divided by and then parentheses put your fraction, and it'll figure it out for you, like if that's what's tripping you up, because I don't want you to get tripped up by that. That's why I recommend GeoGebra. Your phone calculator is going to it won't do order operations, so it's going to get confused. So I recommend just going to GeoGebra and typing it in unless you have a scientific calculator to use. But anyway, my x-intercept is 1. So it is the point 0, 1. Okay, cool. Sorry, it's important to stay hydrated. Okay, so for these, I'm still just finding the slope, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept, okay? So when we're finding the y-intercept and the x-intercept, in this case, like I said, I'm just going to look at the graph. So here's my y-axis, and it touches right there at the point 0, 0. Okay, and then for my x-axis, it's this one. They're even labeled for you. Once again, it's still just the point 0, 0. Now slope, this is where those R words come into play. So it's rise over run. So you would, I recommend putting a little dot at your y-intercept, and then find another point where it's going to touch the corner of one of those boxes. Like it's got to cross it actually that point. So I'm looking for it touches another corner of the box. And then I'm going to draw a triangle. You don't have to, but I'm going to at least count how many spaces I go up or down and then left or right. So remember, the up and down is on top, the left to right is on bottom. It's rise over run. So my slope is 1 over 4. Cool? Hopefully. I don't know. I'm talking to myself. It's hard. Hopefully you guys are following. Anyway, so this one, my y-intercept is right there. It's going to be the point 0, 1. My x-intercept is going to be where it touches the x-axis. So it is the point 2, 0. And since both of these points are touching corners of boxes, I'll just go ahead and use them for my slope triangle. And one thing that is important is that if a line is going down from left to right, the slope is negative. If it's going up from left to right, it's positive. So when I do my triangle, since I went down instead of up, that's going to be a -1. And since I went right, right is positive. If you went backwards or left, that would be. Anyway. So my slope is -1 over 2. Cool. All right. So writing the equation for the line, what you're going to need is, since we're doing slope-intercept form, you're just going to need your m and your b. So my b is my y-intercept. So in this case, it is -1. I don't have to write it as a point because it doesn't ask me for the y-intercept. I'm just using it to find the b for my equation. The slope, so I'm going to find another point where it touches the corner of one of those boxes, and I'm going to see how many I go up and over. So in this case, I went up 2 and over 2. Now 2 over 2 does simplify to just be 1. So in this case, my equation, since it's y equals mx plus b, it's y equals 1x minus 1. Or you could just say x minus 1. If it were multiple choice, you'd see it the second way because it's the more proper way to write it. But if you write it as 1x minus 1, I mean, you're not wrong. So anyway, that's writing an equation. Coming down here, same thing. I want my m and my b. So my b is the easiest thing to find. It is where it touches the y-axis. So in this case, it's +1. And my m, let's find another point where it touches the corner of a box. Right there. And I went down 3, so that's a -3, and over 4. So my slope is -3 over 4. So my equation is -3/4 x plus 1. I wrote that behind the little camera, but let me scoot it over. Anyway, so that's all I got for you for today. There will be another video because we're going to look at standard form for the second half of the week. This should be review, which is why it might feel like we're going a little bit fast right now. So, but anyway, hopefully you don't have problems. The nice thing about it being a video is you can pause, rewind, fast forward, whatever you need to do. Go back and look at it later when you're doing your work if you get confused. But all the problems are going to be exactly like what I've given you here. So the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is this stuff. So I will see you guys at the live meet this week where we will practice some of these together. And yeah, hope you have a good week.